Hi everyone, Shannon Kennedy from Eurolinguist, and today I would like to talk about Translating Chinese Culture. Translating Chinese Culture is a book geared more towards those studying the Chinese language academically. It discusses different aspects of translation you may come across and ways to provide the best translation possible. The book has 9 chapters, which each discuss a different aspect of translation. The first is Translating Modern and Contemporary Chinese Art and Artists. Chinese art, a great portion of it, contains multiple elements. So there's both the image, and then there's also the calligraphy, and the calligraphy itself is often a poem. So this discusses how to translate that poem, among other things. The second section is Chinese characters, national, cultural, and personal identity. So this chapter discusses a couple different aspects of Chinese calligraphy. It discusses the difference between simplified and traditional characters. It also discusses women's writing, which was really interesting because I didn't know that there was a different writing culture in China beyond traditional and simplified characters. So I really enjoyed learning about that. The third section discussed calligraphy and the physical and spiritual aspects of it. So this actually discusses translating texts that are about the calligraphy technique. So the brush strokes and the directions and the names of the different strokes and things like that, and how to properly translate them into another language. The next section is on the meaning of clothes, cultural, political, and historical significance. So this is actually discussing how to translate materials and describing traditional Chinese dress and modern day Chinese dress, and even clothing in modern contexts. So how to care for the clothing, the materials, and one of the examples in this chapter is actually the label that comes on your clothes and how to properly translate that. The fifth section is the role of Chinese nursery rhyme in disseminating traditional values in a modern world. And this chapter discusses how to translate nursery rhymes. And for those who are familiar with nursery rhymes, they're often written in poetic or metered form. So maintaining that rhythm and that meaning is a really important aspect of translation, as well as maintaining the moral behind the nursery rhymes because they carry a message that is meant to be passed on. It also discusses the different cultural elements that may exist solely in Chinese nursery rhymes that wouldn't exist in nursery rhymes from other cultures, and how to properly translate those. So this means whether the actual meaning is carried over into the translation or if it's adapted to suit the culture the nursery rhyme is being translated for. The sixth section in the book is transcreation as a means of delivering poetry to an other audience, rap adaptation, and sinophonic poetry. This one, as a musician, I found really interesting, and it was about incorporating older texts into rap and other mediums for new audiences. The seventh section is absurdity and irony in modern Chinese literature. This discusses humor, metaphors, similes, the way that homonyms are used in the Chinese language to imply multiple meanings, and how to get that across to an audience who may not have the historical knowledge required to truly understand everything that is meant by the text. And also the difficulty in translating passages that have multiple meanings because the language can't be used in exactly the same way. The eighth section is a translation of dramas, so the translations of plays and things like that from Chinese into a new language. Do you maintain the original language of the play but provide subtitles or provide text translations to the audience, or do you translate the play itself and actually change the language that the play is performed in? And the ninth section was translating film, and it discussed subtitles, and I learned a ton of things that I didn't know about what actually goes into the dubbing and subtitling process, and I found that alone was really interesting, and it could be applied to really any language, and about all the restrictions that are put into place when you're subtitling or dubbing a movie. And I didn't realize just how difficult it was, so I have a renewed appreciation for the people who do that sort of work. Overall, I found this book was really interesting. I loved the exercises that they provide the reader that allow you to really practice translating from Chinese into your native language, and I really enjoyed the examples that were provided in the book. I thought that they were very interesting. I also really liked all the topics that were covered as part of this book, so it didn't just focus on one aspect of translation. They actually discussed a variety of different types of translation that can be done and the difficulties with doing those translations and what's required of the translator. And they offered a lot of tips for aspiring Chinese to English translators and things that you can do to be a better translator so that you can not only get the meaning of the original text across, but also help the listener or the reader understand some of the more historical and cultural aspects of what's implied by the original source text. So that is my review. You can read a more thorough written review on my website, eurolinguist.com. If you enjoyed this video, and if you would like more language learning tips or travel tips, please hit the subscribe button. So that's all for now. Thank you so much for watching. 再见. Translate those. As well as